summarize what we talked about, then I want to get your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Zach Schuchart, and we're talking about Fleet Profitability Unleashed, the Optimal Dynamics Partnership Advantage. So first we talked about Trimble.
Mm-hmm.
Trimble is a fantastic conference. I went last year. It was in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I was there.
Yep, it was great. And this year in New Orleans, wonderful. I love this location. New Orleans isn't all bad. I ate on Bourbon Street last night.
Yeah.
And next year it's in San Diego.
I just heard that. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah. San Diego's a great place for a conference too.
Yes, it is.
So definitely want to get to the Trimble conference. And maybe more importantly than the conference is you want to be a Trimble partner and a customer.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, they had a stat. First off, it's a global company. It is one of the top, 6, 7 tech companies. Nobody hears. I Googled it the other day. One of the top technology or logistics technology. They had Oracle on there. They had SAP, and I was like, okay, they have modules, I guess. Trimble's on that list.
Yeah,
and they're on that short list, and you kind of fly under the radar unless you get to one of their conferences and you start to realize
it's a huge company.
I think over 1 million trucks have it. I think last year, $60 billion of freight flowed through the system. So this is a major, major company. And I will say it is the advancements that we're seeing this week at this conference are unbelievable. So that's the first thing. Second, we're talking about what you guys do. And it's a new type of software that is another layer, and it's a layer that's going to help you be more profitable. That's the bottom line, more profitable.
Yes.
We talked about a whole bunch of different problems you can solve for, but let's face it, the biggest problem in our space is profitability. I want my drivers to be happy. I need my customers obviously to be happy. So I have to do other things, but I have to make money or I can't do any of those other things. And so we talked about, you got, what'd you say, 75 trucks at least?
Just plus or minus there, but that's kind of the minimum.
Yep.
But some of our larger customers are well over 1,000 trucks.
Yep. And and we also talked about this is a very difficult market, and it's not as if we're all looking and saying, oh, thank God for the first quarter of 2026.
Yeah.
There is no guarantee that 2026 is going to be a great year.
Yeah. We just with the USPS numbers that just came out on parcel shipments being down, you're kind of like, we're kind of bouncing along the bottom. I think we.
Yeah, and I know we need some armies to leave the field trucks to get off the market, but I think I've heard people say that the secondary market for trucks is different now. And
yeah, I look at it from a perspective. Yes, there's always a focus on capacity when you're in the space of servicing our customers that are the capacity, but I'm also very passionate about the relationship between a shipper and a carrier. And it's very interesting when you actually analyze the market and where rates have been, and then also look at the actual people that have taken over from the last generation of transportation directors at shippers. They're very procurement minded, so they're just hammering on rates. And not that it hasn't been before, but in my view, there's a lot of work that we need to do to enhance the relationship between a shipper and a carrier. We've moved so far away from the relationship because it's become very transactional.
Right.
That that relationship and that service play between a carrier and a shipper is kind of getting diluted. I think some of the addressing our specific market, our transportation market, a little bit of that resides on the shipper as well. So it's a capacity problem, but there's also a demand problem as well.
Zach, it's we didn't touch on this, but maybe we'll touch on it now.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity. So if you and I right now were put in at a very large shipper and they said, Joe, Zach, figure out who we should be working with.
Mm-hmm.
We would probably go in the conference room and say, what do we want from our transportation partners?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, put my procurement hat on, I'd say, I want it to be inexpensive. I want it to be the lowest price. But I would argue that we should be prioritizing for cybersecurity and compliance. And
safety.
Yeah. And that's when I say yes, safety of the stuff we're hauling. Obviously, we've had huge cargo theft problems, and cybersecurity is kind of its first cousin, and so is freight fraud. I think it would make a lot of sense for a lot of shippers. I suspect it's already happening, where security is becoming maybe more important than the lowest price.
It is. cargo theft is on the rise. But when you look at direct shipper to carrier relationships, a lot of the cargo theft and the kind of fraudulent DOT numbers and MC numbers, are driven, are enabled by the non-asset space. So when you work directly with carriers, our customers, the risk of theft is much lower.
Right. Yeah. I was at a few conferences lately, and everyone was talking about the tequila theft. The Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri had $1 million worth of tequila stolen, 2 truckloads. And the drivers who stole it, they picked it up. They did the right thing. They dropped it off where they were told. They said, job well done. And somebody said, yeah, you stole $1 million worth of tequila. Maybe accidentally, maybe got spoofed. But anyway, getting back to it, I think I would love to see the market start to value stuff other than the low price, because
it needs to, for sure.
I just before COVID, I helped a very large shipper select a 3PL. And I remember when they hired a new VP of logistics while I was on that, and I was working with procurement team. The procurement team said, top priorities, savings, second priority, savings, third priority, savings. So I had a slide that said that. And then when the new VP showed up and he said, you have a deck that you want to show me? So I showed him, he goes, we have horrible logistics, and your top priority is to save. I point, of course, to the procurement guys. He goes, I want us to be the very best. I want us to be world-class logistics. I want us to win customers because of our logistics. And he goes, we have a budget. We have to save money at some point, but I want to be world-class first.
Yep.
And I love that. I love the idea of let's be effective first and efficient second.
Absolutely.
The efficiency thing, the race to the bottom, so to speak, has driven good carriers to, well, not good carriers. It has driven some carriers to cut corners.
Sure.
And we've seen it. We've seen it with safety and theft and all sorts of issues.
Yeah, and I think back to kind of the changing of the guard from the old school transportation director to kind of the more procurement mindset. You also had a third kind of leg of this that's really dumping fuel on the fire, which is the vast proliferation of the non-asset community brokers. So basically, you have a shipper now that's saying, okay, I don't want to manage a ton of carriers. I would rather manage things through a broker, which is fine. But what happens now is that transportation manager hammers on the 3PL or the broker to push rates down, which compresses margin on the people that are actually hauling the freight. So you have this kind of vicious cycle that happens.
Yeah, and in this market, the broker's not making any money. Their margins drop from 14, 16 and higher to 12, and a lot of them are suffering. And that, by the way, I think the percentage of brokered freight is growing. I think the very best brokers are exceptional, and a lot of top carriers are saying, we'll open a brokerage. So I'm not against, I know you're not against them either,
100%.
But the bad ones really hurt the business.
It feels kind of like the pendulum swung a little bit too far over the overutilization of just, in general, a non-asset.
Yeah.
Non-asset.
So I think also, if you look, during COVID, we peaked at 30,000 freight brokers, 31,000. I think we're down to 25,000, but the top 1,000 are gaining much faster market share.
Yeah, and
so
they're
I think
actually providing a service. Yeah.
That's probably a good thing, because they can make the investments.
Sure.
And build. When I say investments, it's not in technology and customer experience. It's going to be with the right relationships with carriers. I think if you and I were in charge of a carrier, we'd say we're going to have selected relationships with brokerages.
Yeah, absolutely. We want customer freight.
I want them to be really good to us, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's put a big old bow on this one.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on the topic, Zach?
Optimal Dynamics is driving significant change for our customers, and we look forward to working with our current customers and future customers to drive even more value in their networks.